One of the top coaching candidates is off the board. Rick Tocchett is headed to Philadelphia. What does that mean, though, for the Seattle Kraken, who are looking for a new head coach? Plus, we'll check in with Stevie after his first season in the Emerald City.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team, the Seattle Kraken, every single day. Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken, and, listen, news comes fast this time of year. Rick Tocchett, considered to be one of the coaches that the Seattle Kraken were looking at to fill their vacancy. And even as of this morning, as I was getting ready for the podcast, and I knew I was recording this afternoon, Central Time, Rick Tocchett was still available. He is no longer available, so that's going to change our recording a little bit. But again, my name is Erica L. Ayala, your host of Locked On Kraken, been your host since the very beginning. I'm also a contributor at CBS Sports and the founder of Black Rosie Media, where we empower Black women and melanated creators in sports media. Rick Tocchett, let me first start with what I liked about him. And this will go into what we hear from Chandler Stephenson as well. You need the right balance between a guy or a coach of any gender that is going to be able to press and challenge the NHL roster while also keeping in mind the opportunities for this Seattle Kraken franchise very specifically to integrate young talent. And from everything that we were hearing about Rick Tocchett, that I was reading and learning more about Rick Tocchett in the scenario where the Seattle Kraken are looking for a new coach, I really liked some of what we were hearing. Former player, has roots and ties to Philadelphia. So, again, spoiler alert, that's where he's going. But his coaching style, a lot of people feel that his coaching style was instructed by the type of player that he was. And so Rick Tocchett, he has ties to Pennsylvania, not to Philly, but to Pittsburgh during his playing days, was just the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. And, now we know will be the coach of the Flyers. This is a Flyers team that, similarly to the Seattle Kraken, underperformed in the last handful of seasons, was a lottery team. And now, they get someone who was a little bit of a journeyman at times throughout his career. But it's really in learning a little bit more about Tocchet, I liked the kind of coach that he could be. And I think that there was potential, and I could see why the reports were that Seattle was interested. And, these are some of the things that I like from what I'm hearing about Tocchet. That he can balance skill and physicality. He is all about being and playing a physical game. He wants players that can be physical while also having a touch for offense. He likes to, from what I've read and heard, he likes to really reward two-way play. And we do know, I've always told you this, but we especially know coming off this last season that defense has to be a focus. And it's not just about your defensemen. I've said this multiple times, everydayers, OGers, I talk so much about there's a difference between being critical of your defensemen and your defense as a team. And Tocchet had that leadership and understands the importance of being a two-way player, of having two-way players, of rewarding and expecting two-way play. I think a lot of people also are saying that Tocchet was the kind of coach that could adapt to the evolving hockey landscape. I think that's huge. And I want someone for the Seattle Kraken that has all of those elements. Now, Rick Tocchett, again, is off the table for us, but you have to think about what the Seattle Kraken team is going to do to future proof. And that comes from being able to work with your young talent. That comes from being able to get the best from your veterans, like a Chandler Stephenson, who we'll hear from on this episode. And that comes from being adaptable as a head coach. Now, what are the reasons that Tocchet, if he was courted by Seattle, that he didn't come here? I mean, I don't know. I don't know at this moment. I'll have to follow up with some of what was said in Philadelphia, but I think that there are a handful of things, including that I'm not under the impression right now, as someone who follows this team, that the Seattle Kraken really have a clear vision. Now, is that something that the Philadelphia Flyers have? I'm not sure. I'm going to have to tap in with Rachel Donner, my co-host of the Women's Hockey Report. We will be recording an episode tomorrow, Thursday, ahead of some of the games we're expecting for Friday. So we'll get you. I'll definitely get her thoughts about that. But this is a Seattle Kraken team that, whether we agree or not on what Sam Holloway meant by as soon as possible, this team needs to see results next season. They cannot have another season where they do not make the playoffs. And if they do, are they going to get rid of another head coach? Are they going to get rid of a brand new GM? You know what I'm saying? Like, what happens if this isn't a playoff team next year? But what is this organization going to do to make sure that they are? And how much of that is actually in the control of the head coach? I don't know if these are questions that Tocchet had with Seattle. I think these are questions internally that the organization has to figure out as they're on this quest to find the next head coach. But coming up on today's episode of Locked on Kraken, let's talk about Chandler Stephenson, someone that I was very critical of. And I think it's valid criticism. But also someone who I think had a really great handle of why Dan Bylsma was, a good coach, and what he liked about how he communicated. And that was about humanity and making sure that you are able to understand, appreciate, and respect your players. So we'll talk about that coming up on today's episode of Locked on Kraken. Today's episode of Locked on Kraken brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Are you looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. And some people like the shellless variety. Some people like to crack open that shell and just get that nice sound and very zen vibe of, stacking your shells and pushing them to the side like when you eat edamame. Either way, you can get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And thanks as always for making Locked on Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here. And, it's unfortunate. I think that Tocchet, he is a highly touted coach. A lot of people saying that, he was the coach this season that everyone who was looking to hire wanted to hire. And, if that's true, the Kraken lose out on that sweepstakes, but you got to move on, and that's what we got to do. Speaking of moving on, we're going to talk a little bit and hear a little bit from Chandler Stephenson, and he was asked about being the elder statesman among our centermen, including the fact that we're likely going to have another young centerman. And I thought his comments there were really interesting. As I mentioned at the end of last segment, I liked what he said about Dan Bilesma. And I agree. I think it's safe to say that if you're an everydayer to the Locked On Kraken podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your team every day, then I didn't agree. I still don't agree with Dan Bilesma being canned. But, this is a team that's got a lot of work to do. When we look at Chandler Stephenson, throughout his career, the most goals that he scored in a single season was 21 goals, amassed 64 points, not his highest, but dang near his highest. 21 goals in the 2021-22 season, 64 points in that season. He had 65 points in the next season, 16 goals, 49 assists in that season. He had 13 goals, 38 assists for 51 points for the Seattle Kraken. The 51 points is exactly what he had in his last season with the Vegas Golden Knights. He had more goals, though, 16 goals, 35 assists in that season. We've talked about it on this podcast. His numbers defensively at times were abysmal. And quite frankly, talking about Rick Tocchett and what I think the Seattle Kraken need, he wasn't good enough. He just wasn't good enough at stretches of time. But as you'll hear from Stephenson, as we've talked about it, whether it's Stevie or some other players, things changed and turned at the trade deadline. The last 20 games were much better. We'll hear from Stevie with that regard. And so it's a matter of, can we get that version of Stephenson? And I think we really need it because, again, he was asked about being the elder statesman among centermen. We need him to lead the charge. We need him to really teach, especially Shane Wright, but also to reinforce good habits when it comes to Matty Beniers, who I think is a great two-way centerman. We talked about that in his exit interview as well. But let's hear from Stevie, and then coming up, we'll close today's episode talking a little bit about the Spokane Chiefs, who have a little bit of work to do. That's coming up, but first, here's Stevie.
Having a summer here to know what to expect coming into next year, and it was just kind of everything seemed like a first this year, with all the things that you just mentioned. So now knowing what to expect, knowing just kind of how everything works, and everything, I think, just be that much more comfortable next year. Coached a lot. He's been around for a long time, and it's nice to have a coach that is a human being first and not a coach first. I think that's something that he is really good at. Obviously, there's a fine line between those two, but I think that's a big thing, especially for a younger team, to have a coach that kind of gets it and understands that back-to-back is hard, or certain games might not go your way, but the effort or whatever's there, it's not always we lost, so we suck and back to the drawing board and all that. But yeah, it was definitely good, I think, in that sense. I think that kind of from the trade deadline on, that's kind of the hockey that we want to play, and just kind of build off that for next year. With Maddie and Ryder, what they've done and the type of players that they are kind of speaks for itself. There is obviously a little bit of experience just being around a little bit longer that you can kind of pass on with being vocal about it, or whether it's just kind of leading by example. And yeah, I think there's obviously things this year that, whether I've said it or they've asked, it's been something that going forward, I think that they'll just maybe have their own way of doing it. What I've done over the years is there's things that I'll take that I've been told, or things that I'll see that just lead by example than being vocal. And yeah, there's obviously a lot of potential with those two, and Burke coming in. So yeah, it's I think there's a lot to look forward to.
All right, Seattle hockey fans. So again, Chandler Stephenson, a little bit of an up and down season, but question of the day: stock up or stock down on Chandler Stephenson, given the totality of the last season? Do you like what you saw? Was it better than you expected? Was it worse than you expected? And I guess more importantly, is he a guy that you want around? Well, I mean, he's on a 7. He's one of our 7-7. So we know he's going to be around barring any trade or whatnot. I think he has some no trade clause though, or some movement in his contract, or lack of ability to move him on his contract. But so that's not really a question. He's going to be around. But what do we need to see from Stevie? Let me know in the comments on YouTube, or you can also hit me up if you're a member of our subtext. You can hit me up there. We've got people also following me or Black Rosie Media on Blue Sky. You can communicate with me there. All right. Let's talk a little bit about, first I want to go to Jamie Oleksiak, who it's reported is, as he should be, excited to see Seattle sports scene rewarded with PWHL expansion. And, this is what he had to say in the article. Seeing the passion fans have for hockey in Seattle, it's exciting to see the PWHL grow and expand into the area. Oleksiak, of course, has a sister that's an Olympian and is often asked by people, myself included, about women's sports because he seems to be an allyship. I got to ask him about Sue Bird's retirement. That was kind of cool. This is what Oleksiak goes on to say. I'm definitely looking forward to checking out a game against Vancouver. It's going to be a great rivalry for sure. Our fans always showed up for the Kraken after seeing the atmosphere in the playoffs in 2022-23, that is. We are eager to experience it again. Hey, that makes two of us. And who's to say no to PWHL Seattle not also giving us something to cheer about in the postseason? PWHL playoffs are happening right now. Again, check out the Women's Hockey Report as part of the Locked On NHL channel for more. But as I said, I want to talk a little bit about the Chiefs. Now, they were able to tie up the series earlier in the week or over the weekend, I suppose, but then they fell to the Medicine Hats 6-0. Just a thumping, an absolute thumping. Spokane went 0 for 3 on the power play while giving up a power play goal. They were outshot 45-28. Yikes. In the last game. If we look at the scorer sheet here, well, we know nothing doing for the Chiefs, but that's one of the games you just have to wash, right? You just have to say, all right, this happened. What are we going to do? I think this is a team that knows they can do a lot better. Game 4 now will be tonight. And so it's an opportunity to bounce back. Can they level the series once again? They did it once before. They were able to really get a great start to game 2, and they had a 6-2 win. So this is going to be a series where there's lots of scoring going on, which is exciting, right? Not if you're on the losing side of things, but it's exciting nonetheless. So we'll see what the Chiefs can do. And as far as your Kansas City Mavericks, we talked about them the other day. They are moving on when it comes to the ECHL and Kelly Cup playoffs. But they will be taking on the Toledo Walleye. Their series starts Thursday, tomorrow, May 15th. They have 2 home games, Thursday and Saturday. I'm going to try and catch up with Tad O'Had in between those games. Don't think I'm going to catch him before the game, but we should get him in between the games so we can talk a little bit about that. And on tomorrow's episode, I'll go a little bit more into the NHL playoffs. Let's talk about some coaching candidates, and we will continue on with our exit interview series. We're going to hear from Capo Caco, and I'm going to play his exit interview clips a little bit begrudgingly because the man wore a Yankees hat to his exit interviews. Come on. I mean, said the New York Metropolitans fan. Hey, thanks as always for listening to the show. A reminder to be kind to yourself, be kind to others. We hold fast. We stay true. We say, let's go Kraken. Let's go PWHL Seattle. Let's go Chiefs. And of course, we've still got the Mavericks cooking along. They'll get their series started tomorrow. We'll talk more about that series. But all right, everyone, until the next episode, be well, peace out, and we'll catch you on the next one.